Hey everyone, this is Arsenal Analysis, and today we're going to be going through, recapping, and analyzing the UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Rodriguez card. So we're going to start with the first fight, Da Un Jung against Kennedy Nzechukwu. Hope I'm saying that second name correctly. So Da Un Jung was a very interesting prospect who started out. He knocked out Mike Rodriguez in a devastating fashion. It was pretty much in the first round, and there was a lot of hype behind him. And then he ended up fighting Sam Alvey, which was a draw, which kind of, he kind of sizzled and faded for a second because, you know what, he was expected to just run through Sam Alvey. I remember the odds being -5,400, -500. I actually had him in a parlay, and I remember I was sweating, but, thank goodness it drew, so basically the parlay continued. Even though, I don't advise really using parlays in betting, in my experience. But hey, I have won some nice parlays, but I still think over the long run, it's not really worth it. Better off using single bets. So then after that, he fought William Knight, which I actually had some money on William Knight. So I was clearly incorrect there. I got him at small dog odds. Coming off his Sam Alvey performance, I thought that, he didn't, he didn't really do that well. So I thought that, hey, William Knight, a guy who's so athletic, so strong, so tenacious in there, just, sometimes he could just get up off the ground by just sheer force alone. I thought that he'd be able to beat him, but clearly Da Un Jung showed progression and was able to use intelligent takedowns and technique against the raw strength of William Knight, and he was able to succeed with a pretty lopsided decision win. Then, looking at Kennedy, Kennedy was someone, I remember he had come back from a long layoff, and he was fighting Carlos Ulberg, who was a highly touted prospect that Israel Adesanya had, blessed him. We could say that. He was a sparring partner. He said so many great things about him. Now looking back, we saw, he said those good things about Dan Hooker, but Dan Hooker, wasn't able to kind of stop Islam Makhachev. Obviously Israel's a great fighter, but he may be a little bit biased towards his friends, which is completely understandable. I don't blame him. I probably would have said the same thing. Carlos was able to really show off a striking clinic and really piece apart Kennedy until Kennedy was able to weather the storm and knock out Carlos Ulberg. And I think Carlos, if I'm remembering correctly, I think he was keeping his hands down or something. He was gassing out a little bit. So Kennedy's a really tough fighter. I thought he was really good. I actually, when he fought Danilo Marquez the next fight, I actually had put some money on Danilo Marquez because I thought that Danilo was a really good jiu-jitsu ace. So I thought that he'd be able to take advantage of Kennedy's, grappling, let's say, hole or not. But he was able to stay composed in the first round under pressure. Remember, Danilo was hanging on his back the whole time, and he ended up winning in the third rounds. And if I'm remembering correctly, I don't know if it was split one apiece or if Danilo had 2 rounds, but Kennedy's a very gritty guy. So then he fought Da Un Jung, and Da Un Jung, I think he was a -120 favorite. Basically even odds. I think you get Kennedy at plus 100 money, but Da Un Jung did a fantastic job. I mean, the guy clearly has grown. He's probably, maybe I would argue, the top Korean prospect. I mean, I would say that Korean Zombie, I don't know if you'd call him a prospect anymore. We'll see if he has another run at the title, but I really think that Da Un Jung is really good. Very strong guy, very physically strong, great boxing. He took advantage of the 1-2, did a fantastic job, just even firing into the guard, but just being really consistent, very smooth technique, protected himself. Kennedy has big power, big strong guy, really tough, gritty guy. He was able to put away Kennedy in 1 round, which is incredibly impressive. It was a great start on the card. So he started with that one, just throwing the 1-1-2, 1-2, and eventually, when Kennedy stumbled back, he smelled blood, and as great finishers do, and he just unloaded with the elbows. It was vicious, and he actually dropped Kennedy. I don't know if Kennedy went out, but he almost went out completely. I think it was a fantastic win for Da Un Jung. I'm excited to see him next. He's basically undefeated in the UFC. His only quote unquote questionable thing is his draw, and then I think he had his first 2 losses very early in his career, maybe second and third fight or first and second fight. So I'm excited to see him. He's a very strong guy, very very composed guy, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for Dao and Jung. What a great performance. The next fight was Rafael Alves against Mark Diakese. You know, it's funny, sometimes I'm not sure whether to say Rafael or Rafael, but I'm going to say Rafael to be safe. And Mark Diakese, he's known for submission vulnerabilities. So, you know, as we know with Dan Hooker, he had a famous submission against Mark, if I'm remembering correctly. Rafael was an exciting guy off of Dana White's Contender Series. And he came in, you know, there was clearly some bad blood. You know, Rafael tried to touch gloves. Mark said no. And there was that eye poke that kind of threw off the momentum by Rafael. But then he caught, I think, Mark with a nice left hand. And then he had a flying knee. And then he quickly jumped on that guillotine. I mean, you could see Rafael's biceps just bulging. Really physically strong man. And so both of them, I mean, both of them are just built like, you know, like Greek gods. And, you know, and Rafael just snatched up that guillotine. And, you know, he quickly got Mark out of there. And actually, I highly recommend everyone listen to the post-fight interview. I mean, he was speaking Portuguese through a translator, but it was crazy. He was talking about how his first day, like, his car got stolen, then his house keys got stolen, so he just sleep outside. And then he found out that one of his friends was recording him. It seems like Mark Diakese's, he claimed that Mark Diakese was recording him. Which is kind of insane. I don't know if that's true, but if that's the case, that's pretty insane. You know, that just shows you how tough these guys are overcoming adversity. And even though his record seems like he has 10 losses, those 10 losses are, you know, again, it's different. Like a lot of people probably saw, you know, Eddie Alvarez tweet about boxing, and Teddy Atlas talks about this a lot. How in boxing, you know, people build you up to 20-0. Before you actually face any real competitors, so you might not even be ready for the tough competition. Versus this guy Rafael Alves, he's 20-10, but at the same time, he probably went through the fire, and you can see how good he is. I mean, Mark Diakese, I think he's a solid fighter. Again, he's vulnerable to submissions, but you know, Rafael did a great job. The next fight, Courtney Casey against Liana Jojua, was a little frustrating to watch. I like Courtney Casey. I actually had money against her. On her for a couple of fights. So she had, when she was fighting J.J. Aldrich, and it was a close decision, she lost. I remember I was upset because it was so damn close. She has a lot of these close decision losses, and clearly this one was not even close. So she did a fantastic job. But why it was frustrating to watch is clearly Liana Jojua could have won that if she just used her grappling. It was just a lack of fight IQ or nerves or game plan. And, I mean, you can't blame Courtney. She did everything right. You know, obviously she still has to work on that takedown defense because Liana, when she got the takedown in the first round, it was like butter. It was like super easy. And, you know, but Courtney, all credit to her. She may have been fighting for her job. Who knows? I hope they keep Liana because I think she has potential. Because, you know, again, she just, you know, just a little bit of fight IQ there. Sometimes I feel like she's a little too content to trade in the pocket, even though she has good wrestling and, you know, and she has submission wins. I think her last fight, she lost to Miranda Maverick because it was kind of like I feel like it was a bad stoppage because, I mean, she was bleeding, but she was clearly in the fight. But I feel like, again, she could have taken advantage of her grappling, which it's frustrating to watch, but, you know, good win for Courtney Casey. I like Courtney Casey. This is another example of where, you know, her record doesn't look too great, 10-9, but I mean, she's fought all tough opponents, and all these losses are close decision losses. It could have easily been scored away. I think some of them are split decisions. The next fight, great to see an exciting prospect, Sean Woodson. Super tall guy for 145. He's kind of reminds me of a little bit like an alien, a little bit like an ET with a big head and kind of lean body. But super great fighter. I mean, the guy clearly, like when Colin Anglin was a solid wrestler, tried to take him down. He didn't even let him clasp the hands behind him. He's very, very smart, knows how to use his reach. He got caught a couple times, but still, I mean, the guy's super solid. He's only been fighting, I think they said on the broadcast that he started training at 24. He's only 29 years old. So it's, you know, he clearly has a lot more evolution to his game, but he's doing great. And he kind of reminds me, he has that power where it looks like he doesn't hit that hard because he's so lean, but he kind of reminds me a little bit of Alex Pereira in the sense of where Alex Pereira doesn't look like he's hitting you that hard, but the shots really hurt. And I saw when Sean Woodson dug his toes into those body shots, man, that must have been really painful to watch Colin drop. I mean, Colin's a tough, you know, tough wrestler, you know, grinder, and Sean just, you know, put him away with those body shots. So I'm excited to see Sean's future. I mean, he's going to keep growing and better, and he's probably going to hit his prime soon. Maybe actually might even hit his prime later because he started the sport so so late at the age of 24. Next fight, I'm also very excited and also sad a little bit for Andrea Lee against Cynthia Calvillo. So I like Cynthia Calvillo. I remember I saw her in one of the UFC embedded. She seems like a really nice person and a hard worker. Sad to see her lose. I honestly think that she may be she should go down to 115. Maybe, ideally if there was a 120-pound weight class, it would be perfect. But 125, the girl's a little too big, especially Andrea Lee. She's so strong. It's always funny that I find her nickname, she's from, her nickname's KGB, which kind of, she's not Russian, which is kind of interesting. But, yeah, so Andrea, I think she's a great prospect, and she's really coming into her own. Should be fighting Valentina soon. So, you know what I mean? That's a tough fight for anyone, but I think she's a great fighter. And I remember Joe Rogan saying that, because Valentina's so good, the fighters are all going to evolve to fill in that gap. And I think that's happening. Andrea Lee, her, and then the fighter who's going to be fighting next week, the one who just beat Roxanne Modafferi, Taila Santos. So she's another exciting prospect who I like. So people like them are evolving to hopefully challenge the Valentina. So she's super strong, super fit, looks great. And you could see really the strength advantage. Cynthia couldn't really close on the takedowns, and she just kept investing to the body, and she was destroying the body. Poor Cynthia had to quit after the second round, and I think she needs to take a little bit of a break and figure out what she wants to do next. I think she should go down to 115. She did really great. I mean, I think she had a loss, or was it a draw against Carla Esparza? Let's take a look here. She I can't see. Let's pull up her profile here. So she had she had her draw against Marina Rodriguez, and Marina Rodriguez she has a loss against Carla and a draw against Marina, but Marina is a great fighter. I mean, Marina clearly. I mean. To be fair, her takedown defense has improved, so she's probably be a different result if she fought Cynthia again. But I think she should go down to 115, maybe focus on staying lean. Like if you notice people like Cyborg and like Max Holloway who would blow up like after their fights, now they're kind of staying leaner. So I think maybe she should do that. Maybe focus on cardio, maybe focus on long distance running, and she should fight at 115. Andrea, great win. Let's see her past couple wins. I know she had that loss against Roxanne Modafferi. Oh, she beat Antonina Shevchenko by submission. I actually, I had money on Antonina Shevchenko because I thought she was coming to her own, but I underestimated Andrea Lee because, she didn't do too great against Modafferi, but Modafferi doesn't make anyone look good, to be fair. And yeah, she actually had three losses in a row, so she had a split decision against Joanne Calderwood and Warren Murphy, and clearly Warren Murphy fought for the title, so that's not a bad loss. Nothing to hang your head about. But, she had those 3 losses, but it looks like she came back. It was tough as a young fighter to have those 3 losses in a row, but she came back, developed the mental fortitude to come back and do very well. And she's 32 years old, so she's really hitting her prime, so I'm excited to see her. And, I really like Andrea Lee. I think she's awesome, and she has clearly a good relationship with her boyfriend, who's another UFC fighter. I forget his name, but it's good. They seem like they have a good connection and good advice. He was saying to finish her, and she had already quit after the second round. But yeah, sad to see Cynthia Calvillo lose, and it just shows what a great person Andrea Lee is. Afterwards, she was trying to, she was checking on Cynthia, and she felt bad. And, she shows what kind of great people these fighters are. They always feel bad for their opponent. You know what I mean? Obviously, their job is, the business of pain, but a lot of times they're just, class acts. Next fight, Joel Alvarez against Thiago Moises. Wow. All I have to say is wow. I have a ton of respect for Thiago Moises. He was doing really well against Islam. I consider him like a kind of like a blue-collar fighter, tough guy, great jiu-jitsu, great kickboxing, really tough man. And I honestly feel really bad because I know his father was a fighter, so I'm sure, he wanted his son to become champion, and it seems like, he's had a few setbacks against really tough opponents. I mean, some of these Spaniard fighters, I know Joel Alvarez, and I think Ilia Topuria fights from Spain, but I think he's originally from Georgia. But some of these fighters coming from Spain, they're doing fantastic. Same as France. Some of these European MMA fighters are really coming into their own, like especially the French woman Manon Fiorot. I like that. I like that nickname that Bisping gave her, Fist of Fury. But Joel Alvarez is exciting. I mean, it sucks he hasn't been able to make weight his past 2 fights. I mean, it's kind of hard to see how he can make the weight. The guy is just shredded to the bone. He's really tall. I think he's something like 6'2". Obviously he's like Sean Woodson, but he's a little more filled in, obviously, because he's fighting one weight class up. But the guy, I mean, he looks bigger than 155 because he's kind of jacked, even though he's tall, and obviously his legs are a little bit lean, but his upper body, he looks great. So it'd be great if he can figure out his weight. But if he can do that, I mean, the guy is incredible. I mean, he knocked out Thiago Moises on the feet, and he's known as a submission guy. So I'm excited to see Joel Alvarez. I mean, again, I hope I can get his weight figured out, because again, it might be perfect if he could fight at like 160. But let's see if he can make 155 and really make a run at a title. Clearly, to beat Thiago, he's absolutely a great fighter, and I think that he's, unfortunately, he's kind of like now he's becoming almost like a litmus test of how good fighters are. So we'll see if he can come back and regroup, but full steam ahead for Joel. What a beautiful fight! It's actually, I feel like you see a lot of these tall fighters taking over, even the lighter weight classes, like Joel, Sean Woodson. Also, there was a tall guy in Bellator who won. I forgot his name, but he trains with Henry Hooft, and his nickname is Tall. He's 6'8", but he's built very well, heavyweight, but fights at 250. So I think you're going to see a lot of these tall type fighters, because there's a lot of advantages to being tall, especially if you know how to use it in MMA. Some fighters, like Stephon Struve, unfortunately, never really learned how to kind of use his reach and use the jab. But a lot of these taller fighters, they're really like Sean Woodson and Joe Alvarez. They can take advantage of it. That brings us to the main card. Song Yadong against Julio Arce. Wow. Song Yadong, 23 years old. The guy fights beautifully like a veteran. I mean, he kind of reminds me, he almost had like opposite. What I like is, it seems like the promotion and his Team Alpha Male, perhaps with advice from Uriah Faber, the great Uriah Faber, they took advice in terms of kind of slowly build him up. Because, it's kind of like the opposite with Edmund Shabazian. Edmund Shabazian, what a great prospect. I mean, I thought the guy looked like a world beater. But now, he's losing a few in a row. To be fair to great competition, I mean, he got knocked out by Derek Brunson, who's, I think, is going to make another run at a title. Clearly, I mean, guys, with the Super Saiyan hair. Then he lost to Jack Hermanson, who's also, very good fighter, very solid fighter. I remember actually I had a bet on Jack Hermanson to win by decision against Kevin Gastelum, and of course he won by submission, so I was a little upset about that. But he's clearly a great fighter. And then he lost to Nasruddin Imavov, who I think is really good. Honestly, the guy's really good. Clearly he's training with Ferdinand Lopez and he's training with Cyril Gane, so I'm excited to see Nasruddin, so there's nothing to hang your head about. But that brings us back to Song Yadong. Song Yadong did it the right way. He's slowly building himself up. And he's ready to go into the upper echelon. I mean, I'm tempted to say that, after Piotr Yan, I think that Song Yadong might be the next champion. I mean, the guy's only 23 years old. By the time he hits 30, imagine how good he is. As long as he's not taking too much damage, which he hasn't, looks like he has good defense and, a very exciting fighter. And he beat a great guy in Julio Arce. I mean, Julio Arce the odds were pretty much even, but it didn't look like they should have been even, because the guy just, blew him out of the water. And I know he knocked out Andre Ewell, Julio Arce, so he's he's fighting out a good team in Tiger Shulman's. But this guy, Song Yadong, what an exciting guy. It was so fun to watch, and, fantastic job. That brings us to the next fight. What a crazy fight. Kalen Williams against Miguel Baeza. I remember I had hit a nice bet. I had bet Kalen Williams plus 300 or plus 400 against Alex Morono, and he delivered. And at the time, that the loss kind of the win didn't age too well, because Alex Morono didn't do so well. But now Alex Morono is really coming into his own, so that win actually aged well. So Kalen doing a fantastic job. Baeza, a really great fighter. I believe he trains with Colby Covington, and he's a great fighter. It's sad to see. It's sad to see one of them lose, especially sometimes I don't like it when they put two prospects together. Sometimes I prefer a prospect against a veteran, because it's sad to see one prospect lose, even though they have so much excitement. Especially now, it's back-to-back losses with Miguel, even though he was undefeated before. So Kalen, man, that guy is a tank. That guy hits kind of like a Gervonta Davis type guy. I mean, he hits like a tank. He's a scary guy. I mean, it's a perfect name, Ox Fighter. The guy, the guy just hits like a tank, like scary guy. It's funny, actually. There was just a little meme that came out that showed Kalen getting hit, and there was a Bugs Bunny analysis, because the way his jaw was twisted. But I mean, Miguel Baeza is the one who ended up going out on his feet. Clearly, Miguel Baeza was investing too hard into the leg kicks without setting them up, and clearly hit two in a row, and he got knocked out. Even Kalen off balance was able to rock Miguel. And I think someone was saying that Miguel's coaches, also Kobe Covington's coaches at MMA Masters, were saying that, hey, you need to you don't throw multiple leg kicks in a row, and that's what he did, and he got caught, and he was on track to win that fight. I thought, if it wasn't for that, he just has to be. He tried to maybe put Kalen away, or he felt like that was working so well. He tried to kind of spam it, and that's what happens when you spam stuff. You can't, you can't account. You can never. Kalen Williams has power till the very end, and that just shows you how good Michel Pereira is. A lot of people were criticizing him. I actually had Manny and Michel against Kalen, and he won. And clearly, he's a great fighter. Shows how good Kalen is. So yeah, I hope Miguel Baeza regroups. I mean, he's such a great fighter. Those low calf kicks are nasty. If only he could set him up a little bit better. And again, I felt like it wasn't a good idea to go for the leg locks. He should have just stayed on top and kind of punched Kalen out. Sometimes, the leg lock game is dangerous. It can be high risk, high reward, but sometimes it's better just have that position, punch him out. Look at Max Holloway. I mean, the guy drops submissions even if they're close because he knows that if the fighter survives, he doesn't want to burn his arms out. And, he wants to still have that energy. And, the next fight, Felicia Spencer, I didn't get to see her against Leah Letson. I mean, it was kind of, the result was expected, but I think she had to deal with some adversity. And I hear that she could have finished the fight earlier, but I didn't get to see that, so I'm not going to comment on that too much. Next fight, Marcos Rogerio de Lima against Ben Rothwell. I mean, it looks like Ben Rothwell might be getting a little bit old. Marcus is much quicker, and he's coming into his own. He was kind of like a 50-50 type guy. If you look at his record, win one, lose one, win one, lose one. But now I think he's put together 2 wins in a row against, he beat Maurice Green by decision. So he shows that the ability to win by decision, because before it was just kind of first round fighter or bust. And now he's going back to his roots as a knockout artist. And it was beautiful. When he smelled blood, he just went for it right away. That stoppage was a little weird with Herb Dean, but it does happen. I understand people were kind of criticizing Herb Dean, but to be fair to him, he did correct his mistake. And obviously, in the moment, it's hard to be a armchair quarterback. I know Herb sometimes makes those mistakes, but to be fair, he's one of the best in the business. I really like Jason Herzog. I like the guy with the long beard. I forget what his name is from the top of my head. But I'll look him up later. But I like him as a referee. And obviously, I think Dan Murgiadas was a pretty good referee. Although I feel like he didn't catch when Kamaru and Colby fought. He didn't catch the fence grab and the eye poke, so I didn't like that. But I feel like Jason Herzog does a great job. And that brings us to the main event: Max Holloway against Yair Rodriguez. Wow, what a war! A lot of people. I actually was going to put money on Yair Rodriguez, but I didn't get it. But I decided not to. But I thought it was worth it because I thought a lot of people were underestimating Yair. Like, I think that sometimes you see some of these fighters coming from layoffs, like Brian Ortega, and actually do really well because they've been training the whole time. Obviously, if you're not training, it's a different story. But yeah, it was good to see Yair. He was doing a great job. He had the perfect game plan. He followed a lot of the opponents who had beat Max Holloway before their game plan, and clearly those investing in those low calf kicks really paid dividends. Max Holloway, I don't know how this guy's built out of iron. I don't know how the heck he takes those calf kicks and walks like nothing. I mean, you've seen people stopped. I remember in Bellator, was it William McGreary? Was he stopped by Valentin Nemkov's calf kicks? To be fair, they're light heavyweights, so there's a lot more power. But yeah, Yair is a powerful guy. I don't know how the heck Max Holloway takes all those kicks. I mean, Max Holloway's insane. I mean, just to say, he clearly did a good job in mixing it up with the takedowns. But I don't know how much longer Max Holloway can take all this damage. I mean, he's a warrior. He's a legend, a Hall of Famer. What an amazing guy. Class act, won the Forrest Griffin Award for community service. But I don't know how much more damage he can take. I mean, it's tough. And again, it just shows you that Calvin Kattar was like the perfect style for Max Holloway to exploit. Like Volkanovski was right. Max Holloway's not going to be able to do that against him. But, that's still Max Holloway's ability to adjust in the fight shows that, he could still beat Alexander Volkanovski. But that just shows you that he's not going to, there are certain types of fighters who Max Holloway looks like a world beater against. He's still a world beater, but, nevertheless, some styles match up better. Yair did a great job, showed grit and determination. I actually thought that you could have given the fight to him. He definitely won 1 and 5, no question about it. And I thought that 2, you could make an argument because he landed the harder, more impactful shots. And I think in 3, I thought, to be fair, I'm always a little biased to the underdog. But in 3, I think Max Holloway dominated on the ground, and when Yair got up, he kind of landed some good shots. But I think that the third round, the dominance on the ground was way too much for Holloway. I think that was either round 3 or 4. But yeah, I think but definitely 2, you could have given it to him. But I think, both of these fighters did a fantastic job. Sad to see one of them lose. I mean, those guys should, these guys should be just getting paid so much money because they're just warriors, and I wish the best for them. And yeah, I mean, Max Holloway, I think, about what he said, a lot of times, like, fighters will say, hey, it's a good idea to call your shot. The way he was non-committal, it's interesting because, again, it makes sense. He wants to hunt for that Conor McGregor fight, but at the same time, he, at the same time, it's almost like he wasn't asking for a title shot because maybe he understands that, hey, this is prize fighting. He needs to make money. Maybe, the fight with Volkanovski obviously he's not going to sell as well as the fight with Conor McGregor. And now, obviously he wants to, he can't fight forever, especially his style. And he needs to make money for his beautiful family, his beautiful wife, his beautiful son. So he needs to make sure that, he provides for them. So maybe it was the smart move. And I think a lot of people were saying this, but I do agree. Yair should fight Brian Ortega next. Kind of feel bad because I feel like Yair is going to piece up Brian Ortega. If Brian Ortega can't get him to the ground, and Yair showed some good ground defense, I don't know, man. It's sad to see Brian Ortega getting hurt so much. I mean, the poor guy, again, he also has, beautiful girlfriend, beautiful son. I don't want him to take too much damage. But yeah, I mean, those guys, both amazing. After watching the great Michael Chandler fight and the Gaethje fight and the Billy Quarantillo and the Shane Burgos fight, another guy, Shane Burgos, who takes too much damage. It's like, man, it's tough to see. And also Michael Chandler, I mean, and both Gaethje, both of them take too much damage. Michael Chandler could have fought a much smarter fight. But again, I don't want to, that's for another time. So, yep, that was the UFC Fight Night Holloway versus Rodriguez fight. What a great card. I mean, you're talking about 10 fights, 8 finishes. That tied a UFC record. So what a fantastic fight. I hope you enjoyed my my long breakdown. Please like and subscribe. And the next video should be a breakdown and kind of maybe betting tips for the upcoming Fight Night UFC Fight Night Vieira against Tate. So thanks, everyone. Again, like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.